take it we're bringing Gala 5 back. I'm glad. It was really fun last year when we did it. So this week we're reading out fan fiction. I don't know, Eric and Jen, if you guys have done this yet, but I thought I might as well. There's a quick question before we start. Has anyone heard from Anusha? Because I'm getting kind of worried because we haven't heard from her since November and she's hardly been on Twitter since then. And yeah, I was just getting a bit worried, and I hope she's okay. Anusha, if you're watching, hello. Really nice to hear from you again. But yeah, I was just a bit worried. So okay. I can't remember what it's called, but it's this one of my friends in real life, one she wrote. It's kind of like a joke thing when Merlin finished, and she wrote it as kind of thing to cheer up people. It's quite funny, but I haven't read it in a while, so I'm just gonna keep the paper. Okay, so Merlin pressed his head against the glass, straining to catch a glimpse of his golden-haired prince. The rain was coming down hard, obscuring his vision. It was madness in practice, outside on a day like this. Absolute madness. But Arthur was stubborn and insistent on training no matter what the weather. Even if that weather happened to be snow, that was a story to tell. Shaking himself, Merlin got up and headed down to the laundry rooms. Arthur would expect him to help him get undressed. The silly bugger still hadn't worked out how to do it himself, and needed to get some dry clothes, otherwise there would be hell to pay later. His footsteps echoed along the corridors. Another pair began to reply to his echo, speeding up and growing louder. He spun round. Running was never good news. A soaking wet mound of brown hair hurtled towards him. Mordred. Merlin backed away as the younger boy skidded to a halt and began talking at high speed. Merlin should have been down today. It was amazing. Arthur taught me loads of new techniques and knocked him over, but then he grabbed my sword and it all went a bit pear-shaped, but it was still... Merlin cut him off. Whoa. Stop. It's great that you had a nice training session and all, but you're trailing mud everywhere and someone's going to have to clean that up. Mordred frowned, looking at the path of mud standing out on the white stone. He leant down, pulled off his boots and stood in his socks, grinning at Merlin. Better? Merlin shook his head. Look, come with me. I'm off to the laundry room. You can clean up in there. So they set off, the brunettes bickering as they continued on their journey. Merlin finished sorting through the large pile of clothes he had in front of him, satisfied that Arthur would be happy with his selection. Next to him, Mordred was trying to find some clothes which belonged to him, but was failing miserably. Despite all the choices, it seemed that nothing belonging to him was in there. He shivered. Castles were never the warmest places, especially not in winter, and certainly not when you're soaking wet. Merlin noticed the shivering and turned to face him. You're going to catch a cold if you keep those clothes on any longer. His voice was smooth and husky. How had Mordred never noticed that before? Merlin reached out, interrupting Mordred's musings by pulling off Mordred's jacket and giving him his own. Mordred put it down on the pile and pulled his shirt off, revealing a skinny but muscular chest. He grabbed Merlin's jacket and put it on, wrapping it around him and snuggling into his warmth. It only made the shivering worse. Ignoring Merlin's gasp of protest, he pulled off his trousers and grabbed Merlin. Wait, what are you doing? Merlin cried out. Hugging to share your body heat. Are you seriously telling me you never did this with Arthur? He looked up at Merlin, pleased to see the tips of his sticky-out ears flushing red. We may have once or twice, but only in the wilderness, not where people might walk in and see us, and for survival reasons only. Mordred pushed him against the wall, unwilling to let his new radiator get away. His face was firmly buried in Merlin's chest, wet hair staining his top. Merlin started to say something, thought better, and left him there. The shocked expression on his face was priceless. Arthur would have paid good gold to see that. After a few minutes, Mordred spoke. You know, I never hated you. No matter what it seemed like, I liked you. More than I should, I guess. But you never really felt the same, I can tell. I really don't understand why, because I've never done anything wrong. We both use magic. We should be partners, not fight all the time. Why do you hate me? There was silence for a bit. Then Merlin's arms came down across Mordred's back. Mordred stiffened, surprised, and relaxed into his embrace. I don't hate you. I just don't trust you. I know the magic you have. I know what you're capable of, and having you so close to Arthur, in a position where you could hurt him, it makes me scared. Mordred was hurt. After all this time, after proving himself time and time again, Merlin still couldn't see past the druid boy he once was. He was a knight of Camelot now, and his past deeds were just that, past deeds. Arthur had accepted him, so I couldn't the one person whose opinion mattered the most. If there was something I could do to make you trust me, anything at all, I'd do it. Merlin felt Mordred's heart quicken at his word. As he said those words, the boy must be serious. Well, he drawled, running a hand through Mordred's hair. It was soft, despite the wetness of it. I guess it would have to be something pretty big. Mordred raised his head, a mischievous glint in his eye. Something big. Leaning in, he pressed his lips to Merlin's. They were warm, surprised at the sudden kiss, but unresisting. Ignoring Merlin's first attempts to break free, he continued to kiss him, enjoying himself. Surely that would be enough to get Merlin to trust him. Merlin was shocked when Mordred kissed him, oddly enough. It wasn't quite what he had been expecting. He tried to pull away, but Mordred wouldn't let him. Internally sighing, he gave up. It wasn't as if he hadn't had worse done to him, and it wasn't as if Mordred was the worst of kissers either. When they broke away from each other, panting slightly, neither knew what to say to each other. They just stood there, staring, sharing one of those deep moments where you stare into the other person's eyes. It was quite possible that they could have stayed like that for the rest of the day, had they not been interrupted by a short cough from the door. Expecting the worst, they turned around slowly. They had gotten the worst. A disgruntled Arthur stood there, blue eyes flashing menacingly as he watched Mordred flap around, trying to find his trousers. What exactly is going on here? Merlin fumbled for an excuse. We spent a little too much time in the tavern? Arthur rolled his eyes, stepping towards the two. Mordred, if I ever see you treat my servant like that again. Honestly, doesn't anyone know how to give a decent kiss around here anymore? With that, he grabbed Merlin, giving him the kiss of a lifetime. See you guys next week.